In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the exhaust VVT solenoid on the left bank, or the driver's side bank, of this Lexus IS250. Now, there are 4 of them, so you want to make sure you have the correct one for the application that you're looking to replace. The intake manifold has to come off for this one also, so keep that in mind. Let's get started. Remove your engine cover if your vehicle has one. There should be one here, but mine is already missing, so I'm going to skip this step. It'll be attached with a 10mm bolt in the back, in the center, and then 2 pins at the front that you can just pry up on. Let's get this intake tubing out of the way. We'll start with the clamp that's near the air box, and we'll use a 10mm socket to loosen that up. With this loosened up, we'll leave it right here for now. A little bit further up, you'll see this hose right here. It's got a clamp that you can pinch with your hand, twist it, and pull it right off. On the throttle body side, there's a 10mm headed screw that holds this clamp down tight, and we need to loosen this up to release pressure off the clamp. All right, now you can pull this off the throttle body and off of the air filter, and there we go. Let's remove the throttle body off of the intake manifold. It's got 4 10mm headed bolts, and I'm going to just unbolt it and leave it here, and that's because there's coolant going through it, and I do not want to disconnect any coolant hoses, and there really is no reason to fully remove this. I just need to unbolt it from the throttle body like I said, so let's remove all 4 bolts. Now we can pull this away. I'm going to unplug it just so that there isn't any excessive pressure on the pins or the wires on the connector, and we're just going to let it hang right here. Now if we pull the throttle body away gently, there is supposed to be a bracket right here. Mine is missing. Somebody has taken it off and not put it back on. It should have a 10mm headed bolt going through here and 2 right in here. Again, it's missing. At this point you would want to remove it. Let's disconnect this solenoid. We have a hose with a little hose clamp. Pull this off. An electrical connector, take this off, and then a 12mm headed bolt right here. Now you can twist it and the hose will pull off the other end. Set this aside. Let's get some of this wiring disconnected from the intake. Looks like this one already popped off. I'll lift this one up as well. Set that aside. There's a hose here. Goes to the throttle body with coolant, so we'll pop this off. We'll just move it out of the way. Towards the back side of the intake, we have this electrical connector for the intake runners. And I'm going to unplug this, set that aside. Over here, we have a clamp that holds down this vacuum hose. Goes to the brake booster. We'll have to pinch that clamp, pull it back, and then remove the hose very gently. There we go. We have to disconnect this cold start injector, and I don't want to disconnect the banjo bolt because I don't have new washers to seal it up at the end, and this is somewhat high pressure fuel in here. So I'm going to remove this plate and therefore the 2 10mm headed bolts. And with those unbolted, we'll just pull it straight back. There we go, we'll set that aside. There's a retainer for this harness on the back side of the intake, so we'll pinch those 2 tabs and push the harness down. On the back side of the intake, right near the driver's side strut tower, you'll see that on the valve cover there's a 12mm headed bolt that holds the intake down. Let's remove this. Now let's start from the outer edges and work our way towards the center and unbolt this intake manifold. There are several 10mm headed mounting nuts on studs, and there are also several 5mm Allen head bolts here. I'm going to break them all free, and then we will remove them the rest of the way. Can lift this and slide it out of our way. There's a hose on the back side right here. I'm going to pull this hose off of the valve cover just because it's easier and I want it completely out of my way. All right, move the intake. With the intake out of the way, we now have to move some wires and brackets around here so we can fully get to our exhaust VVT solenoid. So what we need to do is unbolt this bracket, but on top of that, I just want to remove these two wiring harnesses that are clipped onto it so I can free it up a little bit more. So using a trim tool, I'm going to go underneath them. I'm not going to disconnect them, but I'm just going to pry them right out of here. This will free up the harness a little bit. Now we have two bolts that we need to remove, a 10mm headed bolt right here, and then a 12mm headed bolt right down here. And with that removed, we can pull this bracket away, which will allow us a little bit better access to our VVT solenoid. Let's unplug the electrical connector, press on the lock of the connector, and pull it off. There we go. Now let's use a 10mm socket, unbolt the VVT solenoid from its mounting bracket, and then we can remove it. Remove the bolt completely, and now take the solenoid, we'll twist it, turn it, and pull it out that way. You might need to use something to pry it out with, just because sometimes these can get a little bit stuck in here. There we go. Keep in mind, some oil may leak if the vehicle ran recently. And there it is. Make sure the area that it mounts into is clean, which it is. So with a little bit of silicone paste or engine oil on the O-ring, slide this back in. And once you have it in, press it all the way to bottom it out by hand. There it goes. Make sure the bracket lines up and then bolt it in. Snug it up. And torque this to 7 foot-pounds. Now we'll plug the connector back in, and let's get our bracket reinstalled. Let's get this bracket remounted. Line it up. It's going to have to go on these wiring harnesses. Let's put the hardware back where it came from. The larger 12mm headed bolt from down here. Get that started. And the smaller 10mm headed bolt up here. Snug this up about 1/8 of a turn after it bottoms out. And we'll do the same to this one. Make sure you re-secure all of your harnesses that you removed. Let's clean the top of the lower intake manifold. Mine is actually in great shape. It is very, very clean, so I'm going to just wipe it off with a rag. There's nothing for me to scrape off or wipe off or anything, so I'm just going to leave this as is. But for you, make sure you scrape any debris, any corrosion, any dirt buildup here nice and flat. Don't get it inside the runners, of course. Scrape towards the outside. Then this lower intake will be ready for the upper intake. On the upper intake, let's remove the old gaskets, discard them, clean the area, and then install new gaskets. You can clean this in a couple different ways. You could stick a rag in here with a screwdriver and follow it along. You could spray a little bit of brake parts cleaner. Try not to spray too much. This is plastic after all. And then use some compressed air to blow it out. Or if yours for some reason isn't dirty at all or oily, just wipe it off and install the new gaskets directly. Now install the new gaskets, making sure that everything lines up. There are two tabs here that need to stick out in opposite directions, and then of course the link in the center that connects the two also has to line up. Now, one runner is a little bit larger than the other. Well, not the runner itself, but the cutout for the gasket. So you need to make sure that that falls into position. If you find yourself having to squeeze the gasket in on one side and pull on it to fit it on the other side, you have it flipped around. This is a great example right here. This one feels smaller and this one feels bigger. So we're going to flip it around and it works perfectly. With all of these gaskets replaced, it is time to install the intake. Before sliding the intake manifold on, make sure you reconnect this hose. If you also disconnected it right here on the PCV valve, on the driver's side valve cover, make sure that clamp goes back on. Now pivot the intake over the mounting studs that are on the lower intake. Line everything up. Once it drops down, you know that it's in position and lined up. So let's start all of the hardware up front here. It's important to start these by hand to ensure that they're actually threading on and will not be cross-threading. Let's start snugging these up from the center in a cross pattern towards the outer ones. To torque these, we're going to torque the Allen head bolts first with a 5mm Allen, and the torque for those is 13 foot-pounds, starting from the center in a cross pattern towards the outer ones. Don't touch the mounting nuts yet, and we will not touch the 12mm headed one, just the Allen headed bolts. Once again, 13 foot-pounds. Double check them. Now torque the two mounting nuts to 12 foot-pounds. Now let's reinstall the 12mm headed bolt on the back of the intake that goes into the valve cover. Snug it up. We'll torque this to 15 foot-pounds. Let's get the cold start injector reinstalled. Line it up, press it in all the way, and reinstall the two bolts that secure it on. We'll get these snugged up. That's bottomed out and snug. I'll give it a tiny bit extra, and that's it. There's an O-ring in here that'll seal things up, so you don't need to go crazy. It'll actually damage the plastic and the insert that's in there. There we go. Over here we have a couple things to reconnect. One is this harness, reattach it to the intake, and two is this hose that goes to the brake booster. It's just a vacuum hose, so put that hose clamp back on the way it came off so it can seal up properly. And over here, reconnect this motor. Let's reinstall the purge valve, line it up with where the hose is supposed to go on the air intake, and then line up the bracket. Install the bolt to secure it. Snug it up. Reinstall this hose. Get the hose clamp back on it. And reconnect the electrical connector for it. Make sure it clicks. Let's line up the throttle body with the air intake. I'm going to start on all 4 bolts, and then we'll bottom them out and torque them. I'm going to snug these up in a cross pattern so that this can seat evenly. We'll torque these to 7 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. All right, those are tight. Plug this in, make sure it clicks. Now let's secure this hose to the intake as well as this harness. Reinstall the air inlet tube. Put it on one side first and then on the other side. It should slide over smoothly. Reattach this hose in the center and secure it with the clamp. Snug up one of the clamps. You don't need to go until it's completely tightened. You just need to go until it's snug enough to where you can't spin this, and that's plenty. Same goes for this. Snug it up. If you can't spin it, that's perfect. Now, if you had an engine cover, you'd put it back on. Again, mine is missing.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.